Hello and welcome to It's a Numbers Game. I'm Adam Morris, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Daniel Welling. Today we are putting cold calling under the microscope with lead gen specialist Luke Doyle from Bravura Digital, and asking the question every MSP wants answered. Does telemarketing still earn its keep in 2025? Well, stick with us and you'll hear the data recipe that makes phone outreach work. That is how mobile numbers and a sharp ideal customer profile bypasses gatekeepers. The real-world benchmarks for your budget, what prospecting should cost, and how many meetings you can expect. And the 10-second opening line that stops prospects hanging up. So much value packed into this episode. Please welcome Luke Doyle. Hi, Luke. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Adam. Yeah, great to join you.
Yeah, no, really good to have you on the show. And telemarketing or telesales is one of those things that's bandied around all the time. And there seems to be two camps, as far as I can understand. Those that say it doesn't work, it never works, it's a waste of time. It was fine 10, 15 years ago, but now you've got to focus on social media or something else. And there's others that still use it, still think it does work, still think it has a place. So what are your kind of thoughts on where the industry is, where it is today, kind of is it still relevant from an MSP perspective?
Yeah, sure. No, it's a great question. Originally, when I started the business, this was 3 years ago now, we started off as a lead generation company. So we looked at all sorts of different options, which include LinkedIn, automating LinkedIn, direct messages, using Sales Navigator, or email marketing. Can you automate that, or do you personalize it? And what are the best results, and what data do you need? And then we stumbled across someone who was doing telesales and telemarketing, who was getting better results from outreach in terms of telesales. And there were some key bits of insight that we gathered and then used that to generate better results for ourselves. And we started using that process, and we could see that was generating the best results. Something I've always been keen on is improving the targeting so that you're actually talking to less people but having better quality conversations. And I think that's something that's interests a lot of people as well. Although we are in lead generation, we don't want to target and spam everybody. We want to be as specific as possible. So that's where telesales actually has a positive spin on it. So actually you're speaking with less people, but getting better results. So that's what we found.
And I guess telemarketing or telesales gets a bad press in some ways because it isn't targeted, and you get calls where they're just completely irrelevant. So that's a waste of time for everybody, isn't it? And so that's a definite, right? The sort of 101 telemarketing would be to make sure you've got a clear target market that you're offering value to, and that you have something, there's some sort of connection at least, or the chance of some sort of connection in that conversation.
Yeah, definitely. So what we do with our customers is we'll write down the ideal customer profile, and we really focus on this, and everything that we do is based around that profile. That'll be the industry, the job title, the location, and lots of other factors as well that go into this. So we use this information, we create a profile, and then we use that to collect very good GDPR protected information about the people who we want to speak with. Once we've got a very good list of that, and we can prospect against that list. But it's really important to try and remove as many customers from that list that aren't the right fit. So that could be a million reasons, but there's lots of reasons why that wouldn't be a good fit. And trying to get a great list is a really important place to start.
And so in your experience, who would you turn away if they came knocking on your door looking for your help? Who would you say, do you know what? I just don't think telesales is the right strategy for you.
Sure. That's an interesting question, because there's lots of businesses we can help. So most business to business customers know who they want to speak with, know the job titles they want to speak with, and know the companies roughly they want to speak with. So our job is to help start a conversation and open up the door with the right people that match that ideal customer profile. So it really is quite difficult to say, oh yeah, who would we turn down? Who wouldn't we? The one thing I would say is that there are different markets that we've tried that are more difficult than others. And depending on the industry and the market, depends on the strategy that you should use to generate the most leads and the best leads for you. And it's not just about the most leads. It's like the quality of the leads really important. If anything, it's the most important thing. And a lot of our industry, they do focus on the number, the quantity of leads, but actually you just want, if you could get a few great leads, the high converting leads, then brilliant. That's actually what we all want. So yeah, we've come across different industries. So there might be a highly competitive industry. So like the MSP space is usually highly competitive, although you can niche into different areas, as we've seen. But if you take an MSP that can supply their services to any industry, then that definitely is highly competitive. So the difficulty with that is when somebody needs those services, they can find it quite easily online, or they go to their network, they find a trusted supplier and they find it that way. So if it's highly competitive, we would look at a much more sort of targeted approach. So that could look something like going and advertising online using pay-per-click advertising, drawing traffic to your website, tracking those visitors to the website, and then prospecting against those visitors is an example of how you go from a huge market and you're bringing it down to a narrow list of people who are likely to be interested in your services. So that's just one example. We have like a number of different examples.
We'll come back to the podcast in a minute, but first, I just want to introduce you to the mentoring service from MSP Finance Team. How long will you carry on struggling on your own, juggling cash flow, feeling like you're barely making ends meet, when the very reason you started your MSP was not just to help others master technology, but also to secure your own financial future? Or perhaps you've grown your MSP to a good size and are looking to prepare for an optimal sale or acquisition, but have never done it before. We've walked in your shoes. We're ex-MSP owners and have built our businesses from startup to exit, and know exactly how it feels to be constantly firefighting or struggling to grow profit. And that's why our mentoring, or call it coaching if you prefer, exists to help you achieve the rewards you set out to achieve in the first place. More profit, more time, and the freedom to focus on what truly matters. So you're probably asking, why should we work with you? Well, we deliver results. Here are just two examples. A 10 million MSP with a 7-strong leadership team, but lackluster results. Within just 2 quarters of working with us, their profits began to climb. At the end of year 1, their profits will have jumped from 300K to 1.3 million. But we're not that big, I hear you say. Well, we work with smaller MSPs as well. A 400K MSP was suffering a 10% loss before we engaged with them, and were struggling to move forward for years. Again, within a 12-month period, we've turned that business around. They've got new clients, they've got their mojo back, and they made a 10% profit this year. If you'd like results like this, book a free consultation now at mspfinanceteam.com, and we'll discuss a burning issue that's been holding you back and give you several key actions to take away and implement completely free of charge with no further obligations. Don't settle for less. Make your MSP everything you dreamed it to be. Yeah, so what you're saying is make the cold list a little bit warmer.
Yeah.
Essentially, through people that have visited your website, through previous conversations, people you've met at events. You may have, if you've done a good job in building your CRM, you may have 400 or 500 of these over the years, right? So in which case we can now telemarket to that list, and that is in and of itself starting to be more targeted and more specific, because it's not ice cold.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. So if you take the normal marketing funnel, you've got the brand awareness bit at the top. then you've got a bit of nurturing, and then you go to conversion. And that's the kind of process that you're going through. When you do that pay-per-click advertising, you're getting your brand awareness out there, you're getting people to interact with your website. The nurturing bit may come from them visiting your website, but engaging with it in some way. It could be subscribing to your website, to your newsletter, and then it's focusing in on, well, who's actually engaging with your company.
And I've always been a big fan of, if you're sending out either physical mail or email, and by the way, I think physical mail nowadays is probably head and shoulders above email, but I'm happy to be corrected on that, Luke. But I've always been a big fan of following that up with a call.
Yeah.
Because again, you've warmed them up in some way with some kind of material, some kind of content. And now you're seeking some kind of call to action with a telephone call. So thoughts on then how best might, I guess, summarizing what we just talked about here, how best might an MSP owner position themselves to make their investment in telemarketing successful?
Yeah, sure. So I think, on the same tracks then, there's things we've done for our clients, which include signing people up to a webinar. So it could be a hot topic, an industry specific webinar is good with a hot topic. So we've done that, and we can use telesales to speak to the right customer, so the right ideal customer profile, to invite them along to the webinar itself. So let them be nurtured and let them see you and your expertise. So there's a bit of a thought leadership in there. And then following from the webinar, we then call them back, and we'd like to start an initial conversation. And it's all a very sort of light touch. So it's not trying to sell to them on the phone. What we're looking to do with our job is to just start an initial conversation with the right person. And just following that webinar process, you can generate more warm leads and better leads as well, but more of them too.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of all those things. That makes an awful lot of sense.
Yeah.
And just reflecting on the different tactics that you've described there, any one of the methods could come first. It's almost like the cart before the horse. Does someone attend a webinar? We'll call in them first, help them attend the webinar, and then they get the education, the nurturing. And it sounds to me like the key thing here is always that it's part of a continual journey. It's not just a one time. So you can't just send an email or a letter or make a phone call. Individually, they're less effective, if at all, but combining them together, they accelerate each other.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, spot on. And there are times when we will do just prospecting on its own, as if you have a salesperson internally on the phone speaking with the ideal customer profile. We do that job on behalf of our customers. It's just deciding what the right strategy is. We do believe that the strategy is a big part of the success of the campaign as well. So what is the strategy? What are we looking at? Why do we need more nurturing, or is the offer and the idea of the business good enough on its own? So there's things that we do. We go through all these things with our customers, and we decide together on the best strategy to use based on our experience as well. And then depending on the industry, depending on how competitive it is, we make the appropriate amends and suggestions.
Sorry, Dan, go for it.
I was just going to reflect back on my own journey in terms of when in the dark ages, when I was originally in business, calling was a key part of what we did. Although looking back, I couldn't actually tell you when and how it became successful or more successful. And in fact, the results came again, not in any definable cycle. Suddenly, the same thing we were doing 6 months ago is now working. We're booking more meetings, and those meetings are converting. And then you do the same thing for another 6 months, and then nothing happens. And you're like, well, what are we doing wrong? And the only real thing I can sometimes put it down to was just a level of confidence. When you're in a purple patch, you execute better those conversations. You're more positive, proactive at the booking, at the call stage, at the follow-ups, rather than if nothing's sticking and you're just down in the dumps and you're like, well, to be honest, I won't even bother booking the meeting because you're not going to turn up. And even if you do, you're not going to be interested. And even if you are, you're not going to follow through. So I'm not going to bother following you up. Where you can talk your way in and out of an opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. I think we see it all the time internally with our sales professionals. They get into the flow kind of state and then they get really good. So the more time they spend with a specific customer, the better. The way we do it is we have a whole day of prospecting rather than mixing it between different clients. We have one full day of prospecting against one account. That means, like you said, yeah, you can get, into that practice and just perform at their best, basically. So yeah, it's interesting. Some days we have had days where we booked no meetings for a whole day. Equally, some of the personal bests are like 13 meetings in one day, and that's fantastic. And we record all the calls, we got all the information so that we can provide it to the client and give them that information. But often what we're trying to do is the reason for the call is usually just to arrange an initial conversation. So it's just to be able to show you and have an insight meeting, if you like.
So,
Yeah.
Luke, we've done the homework. I've got an MSP now and I'm ready to press go on it. I've got a target market. We're good at what we do. We've got some good messaging and good clarity around the value proposition. So we're ready to go. What should my expectations be here around what you're going to do for me? There's wildly different crazy things being said out there. What's realistic? What's it going to cost me roughly? What kind of ROI might I expect? What might you say to me?
Sure. So we've got a standard package at the moment, which is one full day of prospecting against an account. And that would be £2,500 per month. So what that is, every week we'll have a sales professional working on your account. So that means that they do prospecting on that day for you. Obviously, we have every week of them doing that. So that adds up to £2,500 a month. But what we would do is look to develop the right strategy for you based on our experience first. We'd have an onboarding session where we'd learn about your ideal customer profile. We have a live dashboard where we record all the information, and it means that you can update the leads with the progress that's been made. So whether they attend the meeting, whether they don't, whether there's an opportunity there or not, you get to record that, and it's very visual and easy to see. So we share that information with you, and you get an email through with the booked meeting. So this week we booked you with this person. We'll have all the information there. So that's giving you an idea of one of the standard packages that we offer. So within that, we usually say there's a target of 3 meetings per day for our sales professional to complete. So that means that at the end of the month, you should expect around 12 meetings that have been booked. But from there, you'll have a dropout rate as well. So it's normal to expect around a 50% dropout rate. So you can expect there's around 6 meetings left then that month. But that depending on your offer, depending on your business, how competitive it is. There's all sorts of different factors there. But what we do is we will call the client. Once we book the meeting, we'll call back. We'll let the prospect know that we're going to call them back a few days before the meeting. And the reason we do that is to qualify and to confirm their attendance. So the qualification part is just saying, right, some top level questions that we can ask them to just get an idea of how to provide our clients with the right information. So we use goals, plans, challenges, and timelines, for example. So we ask some top level questions to get a better understanding, to provide that information to our client ahead of the meeting. And secondly, the confirmation call is about confirming the meeting. So we say, is it in your calendar? Is everything, have any questions? Do you know why you're meeting and everything else? So we confirm all those things, and then that increases the chance of them attending the meeting itself. So that's what we do internally at the moment.
And also filters, right? We're also going to lose some of those meetings, whatever percentage, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because what we don't want is our clients waiting on the end of the phone and somebody not attending. And that happens obviously quite a bit because there's a big dropout rate. However, that's why we do this confirmation calls, to try and remove that ahead of the meeting. If we have a feeling that someone's not going to attend, we should be telling the client that beforehand, saying this person's not going to attend the meeting. It's unlikely, but otherwise The only thing the client needs to do is to give the customer or prospect a call after about 5 minutes if they're not attending the meeting, just to give them a quick call and just to let them know that you're waiting on the meeting, and if there's any problems or anything like that, if they can't attend, that's fine. But yeah, to give them a quick call. Other than that, the client doesn't need to do anything else apart from update their status at the end of the meeting to say whether that person attended or not.
Sure.
Once we know that, then we just get on the phone and reschedule if possible.
So Dan, that's an interesting point, isn't it, around a pre-meeting follow-up call? We've discussed this previously. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Thinking back to my original stint, before, of course, we had video calls, so they were all in-person meetings, and we had meetings cancel on our way there, sat in the reception, waiting, and we also had that happen even if we had confirmed the meeting before. And so we found a mixed bag in terms of whether or not a confirmation call would increase or decrease, because obviously one of the outcomes is, oh, I'm glad you called because I don't want to have the meeting anymore. And well, if we'd have turned up and we were sat in the reception, would they have cancelled? Are we giving them an easy out? But yeah, I couldn't tell you whether I followed that through and worked out how many then went on to become customers in 3 months, 6 months, 6 years, etc. But yeah, that was, I think there's a mixed bag. So sometimes we thought, yeah, that was a lucky escape because we didn't want to drive to Scotland for a half-hour meeting for a cup of tea. But yeah.
It's interesting you say this, because one of the best things about doing the qualification call is that we can give our customers some great information ahead of their meeting. So these are kind of some of the sales questions you might want to ask on that actual call, but you're going in prepared, knowing what their goals are, what the plans are, what the challenges are, and the timescales and everything. So you kind of have some of that information so you can go in prepared. And I think that goes a long way as well. There's a lot of sort of studies done to show the more you prepare for these meetings, the better the outcomes are.
Would you have not established some of that though when you booked the meeting in the first place?
It's a good question. Yeah. So the meeting, when we schedule a meeting, the reason for the call is always to schedule the meeting. So the reason for that is that we want to be able to briefly explain what the company does and how we can support them and why we're relevant and credible. But it's immediately, because it's such a short conversation, it's a case of saying that the reason for the call is to schedule a longer conversation with you to discuss this. So once you've scheduled that, then we've got an opportunity to go back and just get some more information and ask more in-depth questions. On that first call, you don't really want to get into that because they may have objections to what you're saying and your proposition. So if they ask those objections on the call, it's not the time or place to answer those then and there without understanding their business first.
So I just want to get some clarity because I'm not sure I completely understand now. So when when you make your first call, is the objective of the first call to get a second call, or is it to get a meeting?
So it's to get a meeting scheduled, discuss the whole business in more depth
with the client, obviously. Yeah.
Once that's scheduled in, we will do a confirmation and qualification call. So we'll let the customer know.
But are they expecting call?
Yes.
So you're selling the meeting, and then you're also selling a second call to get a bit more information to get the most from that sales meeting.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll say something like, if you're happy, we usually like to call you a few days before the meeting just to help us better prepare for that meeting. Would that be okay with you? If they say yes, that's brilliant. That gives us sort of the permission to be able to give them a call back a few days before. We say, keep an eye out for our number. We'll give you a call. Thank you very much. And we schedule the meeting first, and we'll make sure that qualification call's done to just try and increase the attendance and just get a better, more in-depth conversation going. It helps the client too, because they know that you're serious and you're asking the right questions about their business. You're actually spending time to understand it before that call. as well.
Yeah. So for those MSP owners out there listening to this podcast today who are doing this themselves, or they got an internal person doing it, what are some of the tips you could give them for getting the most from a telephone conversation with someone they don't know?
That's a really good question. Internally, we've actually written an ebook that we're looking to publish soon. We'll probably put it on our website. I would definitely say that's a good opportunity later to say, okay, if someone did contact me, I'd certainly give them that information, because that's absolutely vital. We use it internally for training as well, but there's so many great tips in there. So that's an example. Is the reason for the call in the first place is to book the meeting. So you're not trying to get into an in-depth conversation. There's a lot about sort of tonality and kind of what to say, but we really believe that there's not to waste people's time is key for us. So we don't want to do that. We want to get straight to the point, whilst being professional and clear, and let them have the decision. If it's a no, then it's a no, and we don't carry on. We're not pushing. We're not pushy. We just say, no, if it's a no, that's a no. We move on. Depending on the situation, we have lots of different things that we have internally to just make things, to improve the results, basically. So the data is really important as well, I would say. Having GDPR compliant data, but being able to get through to the decision maker straight away is absolutely key. So that's one of the most important things. Without that, the time you spend doing it would be too significant to justify the results, basically. But if you do have the right data and you can speak to those people you need to immediately, then you're being really time effective and you're doing it the right way.
And when you say right data, the biggest hurdle is actually getting through to the decision maker. So are you talking mobile phone?
Yeah, so it would be a GDPR compliant work mobile phone number. And that's one of the keys to being able to reach the right people immediately.
And the key thing there, GDPR compliant, what percentage of decision makers does that filter through? How many are now automatically not available?
So there is a huge amount of data. We use a business-to-business GDPR compliant platform for this that we spend a lot of money on every year. So through that information, we're able to use that to speak to the right people immediately.
You're saying it's not an obstacle particularly?
No, not for us, no. So we have so many of the right decision makers that we need to speak to. It's not an obstacle for us. I think this is something we've had to learn through the years of doing lead generation, of what platforms to use and how to do it. But yeah, it's important that it's GDPR compliant, but it's from a good source. We're not using old data or anything like that. It's very up to.
So if it was traditional in the sense of calling the main line into the office and getting through to reception, and the reception saying, "Thank you, I'll let him know," you're saying, that's not going to work.
No, it's incredibly hard. You take a lot of work to get the same results. The results we can generate during that time are so much better. And that's how we do it. It's because we're getting through to the decision maker straight away. We're being really time effective. But you put that data with a very good salesperson and you've got a great combination there already.
And leave a voicemail or not if they don't answer?
You can leave voicemails. It depends on the size of the list, I would say, that you are prospecting against. So if you've got lots of data, you may just want to move on to the next person. If you do leave a voicemail, it's probably more likely that they will respond without a voicemail. So they will actually call back if you don't have a voicemail on them, because nobody wants to be sold to. If you feel like you're being sold to, just like we get in our emails, so you have lots of emails that we'll delete immediately as soon as you get the feeling you're being sold to. So that's, I think, usually we don't include voicemails in the prospecting, just to save time and to move on to the next person. And we obviously take a lot of rejection on, and we do that prospecting. So we just have to be really resilient with it as well, but really professional too. And that's really important to us.
So it's all making a lot of sense. We've got the data component, we've got the quality of the individual, and then we've also got the words they use or the script they use as factors in the success of this. What does that look like? Is the data 50% or the person 50%? What's the sort of ratio here?
Yeah, data is absolutely key. I would say it's the biggest factor there that you just mentioned. Having a great salesperson who's able to be professional, resilient, and get through what he needs to get through to be able, or she, to be able to perform at their best, that's really important. And there is a big difference between somebody who's really experienced in this and somebody who's taken it on for the first time maybe, or has had a bit of exposure to this. But once in a while you'll come across somebody who's absolutely brilliant, who's able to do this job incredibly well. So it's very difficult. I would say that's also a really big factor. There's a lot of training involved if we take somebody on, and it's not an easy role, and I don't think everyone can do it. That includes myself as well. I'm not claiming I can do it either, but our team internally, we've got the right people in place to be able to do it. And so is a big factor. I would say, so data, I would say is probably 60%. I would say 40% for the person. Actually, that can't be right because we got scripts. So yeah, maybe 30%. And then for the person, and then you've got the scripts, which I'd say is another, because the script it can be amended. And I think you learn quickly as you go through what works. So you'll kind of have a continuous feedback loop whilst you're speaking to people. And I think that's important, that you amend your script based on reality of what's being explained to you on the phone. You'll feel that certain things work and certain things don't. So I think that's important. But we do try and focus our script on relevance, the offer, what we're asking them to do as well is important. But relevance, credibility is important. So using examples and of similar customers that you've helped, but really succinctly saying why you can help them, why you're unique, separates you out from everyone else, but why is it a useful conversation to have for them? And it just making it feel like a light touch, that it's not anything too serious. It's going to take 10, 15 minutes of the customer's time to learn about your business, and you can learn a bit about theirs too.
And there's a lot you just said there. So you've got 10 seconds before the client puts the phone down potentially. So what is that first sentence? How would you craft that first sentence?
Sure. It depends on the client, depends on there's a lot of different things there. What we try to do is just try to get to the point as quickly as possible. So there's a lot of wasted words at the beginning of scripts often that don't really count for anything, because people don't really care too much about that bit. And a good example of that might even be, "Hi, I'm Luke calling from this company." And that's the same starting point that everybody has. So I think you almost want to try and use like a bit of a pattern interrupt with calling, that it doesn't sound like a sales call, even though it really is. That's of course what we're doing is prospecting. It is ultimately a sales call, but to try and avoid sounding like that and to create a script that just gets to the point. Nobody wants to answer how your day is, for example.
Sure.
So our salespeople won't say, "Oh, how's your day going?" It's like, "No, I don't."
That's the worst thing we can say.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the worst bit of someone calling you, we think, is the first, if it goes on, is how long it lasts. That's one of the most frustrating things. But if someone's quick and they can explain their product and service within 8 to 10 seconds, I think that's a good goal to have. I think the immediate reaction to a call is that you don't like it. As soon as you pick up the phone, you have an immediate emotional response to somebody calling you. So that's negative. And then I think as you explain the reason for the call, it can calm down a little bit. So then more like 8 to 10 seconds into the conversation, you start to relax, you regulate your emotions, and then you realize, okay, actually that's not too bad. I'm quite interested. And if you can pique their interest and show you're relevant, show you're credible, and actually you're not asking for much, it's just a 10, 15 minute conversation with the right person. And then that's a great That's a good start. If they're not interested, then that's okay. We move on and it's not a problem. If they are interested, wonderful. We'll schedule a meeting for them. And yeah, go ahead.
And I think we're close to time, unfortunately. So we may have to schedule a follow-up episode to this. But my next question was actually going to be around the shortness of the call that you're booking. Yes, it's a lower commitment, but you're actually putting a lot of pressure on the person executing that 10 or 15 minute call, because they've then got to effectively, in that period of time, book the proper meeting beyond discovery. Do you advise on that onwards sales cycle once that first call has been scheduled?
Yeah, we do actually. That's a great point. So it's important to us that the meetings we're placing in front of our clients turn into actual results. So the ROI and the bottom line. So that absolutely is part of that. And what we do is I work as an account manager with my clients so that we are looking at the whole process and we're trying to understand where things work and where things don't work and what you can improve following that meeting and in that meeting too. So what do you actually do in that meeting? How do you run that meeting, and providing some realistic examples of what to expect. So what we don't expect is to convert somebody straight away on that first initial conversation. It's very unlikely. It might be that person says, look, it's perfect timing. It's just you just happen to call and that's great. And then you feel that's a great opportunity. But it's often about relationship building as well for us. So we see ourselves as kind of providing conversations with the right people, the right companies, the right size, the right industry, location, and so on. And it's all about networking for us and relationship building. Of course, there is a bit of sales in there and understanding what works. And it might be that different industries respond differently to different sort of methods. So yeah, we look into all of that, and yeah, we're able to help our clients convert these meetings as well better. But usually it's somewhere in between. We'll have some short-term wins and then some long-term wins as well. We like to see it as that all of it's long-term really, because at the end of the day, if you expand your network with the right people and you're having great conversations, the right people, then, you're on the right track. And that's the whole goal of what we want to do for our clients.
Well, look, we are absolutely out of time. I've really enjoyed the session today. Dan, any final thoughts or words?
Next time we'll have to talk about optimizing that 10 or 15 minute conversation.
Yeah. I think it's a fascinating area. I think it can be really, what's the word? Not pivotal, but can certainly make a big difference to an MSP's marketing strategy, involving telemarketing strategically within the plan. Not just throwing money at it, but hoping something will land. I think it's got to be focused. And I completely agree with you about the quality of the list and all the ancillary tactics that go on around it to support that campaign.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Thanks for letting me join you. See you again. Bye.